Well, everybody, thank you for being here. My name is Trey Gonzalez. I'm a product manager here at Variphy. I'll be your host for today's live webinar. And we are joined by my good buddy, Jon, and he's a systems engineer here at Variphy. You excited for today's webinar here, Jon?
I am, Trey, actually a little bit more than I usually am to present.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. To kind of give you guys a glimpse inside, we're going to give you the steps to perform your very own Variphy wellness check. If you're ever asking yourself, is this feature working or am I low on disk space? We're going to address all of that. And Jon's going to help you out. So just a quick note that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours, so you can review them at any time. Check out the webinars page at variphy.com for all of our past and upcoming sessions. And you can also find all these videos on our YouTube channel if that is easier for you. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. On our agenda today, we're going to start with a quick overview about Variphy and what it is we do. Then we're going to jump into the demo where Jon will present the Variphy wellness check. After that demo, we'll pause for Q&A and get some of your questions answered. So during the presentation, if you have any questions, please be sure to ask them in the chat panel. I'll be monitoring those, and I'll make sure to get all of your questions answered here after the demo. And then after the Q&A, we're going to reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang tight till the end and see if you won. Now, a little bit about us. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution tool for Cisco Call Manager, Contact Center Express, CubeIOS, WebEx calling, Zoom Phone, and Microsoft Teams collaboration. Deployable either on-prem or as a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading call reporting and analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets. CUCM management includes modules like remote phone control, change management, and dial plan management. So now today we are going to be focused on the Variphy wellness check. So if you have any questions on the features that we listed just now, please contact us, support@variphy.com, or you can reach out to your account manager if you are already a part of the Variphy community. And one more thing before we kick this off, for an additional fee, Variphy does offer an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Variphy's systems engineering team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you with a dedicated Variphy systems engineer to do all of the heavy lifting, giving you a stress-free, hands-off experience. So for more information, please contact us or again, your account manager, and we'd be glad to speak more in depth about pricing in terms of service for our enhanced consulting services. All right, now I think it's time to get into the wild. I'm going to hand things off to Jon. So again, please remember to type any questions into the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation.
All right, let's see if I can share my screen properly here. Yeah, so there we go. Well, thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. And as Trey said, we'll be going through a checklist to look at the wellness of your system. It's going to have a companion article in our knowledge base, and Trey will share out a link to that in a minute. So if you have multiple screens, you can definitely have that up on one screen and me up on the other. So here I have our variphy.com. To get to that article, we can go to the resources area under the support center into the knowledge base. And from there, if you just do a search on wellness, if I spell it correctly, it'll take you right to what we'll be working from today. You can also get there by just going to the kb.variphy.com and doing the same type of search if you want to bypass the other screens. So that said, we'll go ahead and get right into it. Most of what I'll be doing today is going to be based out of the settings gear in the upper right-hand part of the screen. And I said I was kind of more excited than usual to be doing the presentation because I am. Back in June, I did a presentation demystifying the settings gear a little bit, and that coupled with a couple tickets of people that had run into trouble with the system that was kind of preventable. Had wellness check been a part of their use of the system, kind of launched the idea of having this webinar. So we'll go right into it here. From the settings gear, I'm going to go into the application settings. And right at the top is one thing I forgot to put in to the documentation. So I'll mention it here and we'll get it in there. But a default system alert recipient. So if you have a application owner for the Variphy application, having their email here can be a little step saver later on, where there's the option to just use that default email recipient. I'm going to go ahead and plug myself in there for the moment. Also within the application settings here, we have the default, the max inactivity session length. I believe most systems come out of the box at 15 minutes, but I have found that I have successfully set that to 60 minutes and been able to keep my windows alive longer. So you may have network, browser pushed out settings that are going to affect your timeouts or your ability to stay in. But if you don't, like I do, this can assist you in keeping your sessions live and not having to log in again. Go scroll down a little bit here to the CDR processing settings. The default processing interval, this is what controls how often we're going to go out and try to put new data into the database by default. This is a setting that I'll cover later on that can be set on a per platform or per cluster basis, but there is an overriding default that you can set. And if each time that a processing session is invoked, there is some resource utilization. And if you don't need to see data in near real time, you can go ahead and make a adjustment there to ease some of the load on the system. The next one here is the preserve processed CDR files. So this is not the data that's used for reporting. This is the raw data that some platforms provide to us. And if you save that data does accumulate on the Variphy server and can become a disk space problem. And often when we do get support tickets open for issues, it'll come back to the fact that the Variphy server volume went full. So there's no distinct rule of thumb for this, but your system may be sitting at keep forever. And really just a month or two is generally what we recommend here, so that you have, or what I recommend here, everyone has their own opinion, but a month or two of raw CDR files will give you the ability to have something available should we have to troubleshoot data in the system, should there be any sort of failures or anything. It gives us another layer of access to information that we can use in our support processes. There's a couple different data types here that are listed. I would just recommend setting them to the same. Platform API connection failures. This is in most systems, I think, is defaulted to 3, but if you have some connection failures where your processing is going suspended, if you think that your environment may have a little issue with reliability, even periodically, setting this up a little bit can keep the system flowing and perhaps save you from having to open up a service request. Scroll down now into the call analytics report settings. Should the system have any issues emailing reports, it's a good idea to have somebody notified of that. And we'll cover that a little bit later on when we look at the repository, what kind of things can happen there. But you can use the default recipient. I put myself in there just a few moments ago, or you can designate different people to receive notifications for different types of problems within the application. I definitely recommend doing that. Max cradle to grave. If you're using our Mac cradle to grave or start to finish option, you may experience when you're running that, if those reports take a long time, It could be that you could speed them up a bit by reducing the number of passes that we do looking for associated records. You kind of look at it almost like you're, sweeping a floor, and the first time you sweep it, those first couple swipes will get you 90% of what's there. After that, you're just getting, maybe a little bit more. So if you reduce this down to two or three, uh, chances are you're going to get the same data nearly all the time. So moving it up to 4 or 5 might be better served for when we're, really trying to troubleshoot something, or when you're working with us on a support ticket, trying to find out what's going on with your calls. Going to scroll down here to the repository settings. So there's going to be one set of repository settings for each platform that you have licensed on the system. And the one value that I want to talk about here is the max disk space usage. The system does go ahead and maintain this space for you. So when it reaches whatever, however many gigabytes you have designated here, it will go through overnight and bring the files back down to that amount. Now, as I'll show later on, you do have the ability to lock files and have them so that they cannot be deleted by this overnight process. So if you want to keep a longer time period in the repository on a per, maybe one platform is more important to have that historical repository information. Let's say in this instance, the CUCM needs to be there more than the cube. You can increase this so that you'll have access to more information. I'll just scroll slowly through the other platforms. You can see that that's available on each of them. We'll go on down through the widget settings here and get to the bottom of the application settings, where we look at the hard disk management. We often see systems running into sometimes significant trouble when this usable space on the root partition bottoms out. And so what we want to do with this setting is to give enough time for you to act on a low disk space condition. So very large systems, just 2 gigabytes may not be enough. And so what we'd recommend is that you check this, and I'll show you that in a few minutes about checking the server platform to see how much this value is going down, and to maybe up this threshold a bit in order to make sure that when you do hit a certain lack of disk space, that notification can be kicked in. So that's the next thing here, is to email an alert to somebody, whether that's someone on a server team or to the application manager or to a group. A group email can work for things like this as well. I'm going to switch that over. All right, so that is it for the application settings. We're going to go in now to some specific platform settings. I will be using the Cisco Call Manager for this, but there's a lot of similarities, and maybe we'll have a few moments to jump over and check one of the other platforms as well. So here under the CDR processing, you can always do a check available data here to get an idea of what your start and finish dates are for the data for individual clusters. So you can see what the system has available for reporting. And this can be a clue to you if this isn't sufficient, like if you're supposed to keep 3 years and you see that this is only keeping 1, then you can make changes going forward so that you keep the appropriate time period of data. I'm going to go ahead and go in and edit one of these clusters. If you remember back in the application settings, we could set a system default for the preservation of raw files. Here's where that can be set for this cluster on this platform to either use the system defaults or to disable the storage of files. If that's not something that you need to do, you can turn that off here, and no raw data files would be maintained. If you're choosing to use to override, you can still within here, you can set individually how many months you want for your CDR retention. CMR files are specific to the call management environment. The other platforms will just have the CDR files. All right. So now we get into the stored data. So if we're looking at the primary database purge settings, you can see here we're set to keep forever. If you are too, then there's a good chance that when we looked at that information back in the other screen, you'll probably have data all the way back to when the system started. So you can maintain your system a little bit tighter by making selections here for the weeks or the months, or the number of months that you need to keep in your primary database. Now, if you're a very large system, what we would like to recommend is the idea of getting our database archiving utility or feature added to your system. What that would allow you to do is to maintain a small primary database and then have archival databases to allow access to older data. It can make the system perform much better. We have webinars and knowledge base articles on that. Keeping forever also, I should mention that allows the databases to grow continuously, which can also become an issue for disk space on our volumes. Down at the bottom of the CR processing settings is the monitoring settings. I'm going to go ahead and toggle this on because it's off by default. And what this does is allows you to set a notification for a low call volume that you can set so that there's a notification possible. So if the CDRs are not being processed, this is where you go to set that up, again, on a per cluster basis. So when I turn that on, I can set the number of calls, whether that's 1 or 100. You can turn off days of the week if you don't want to worry about weekends. You're primarily a business week operation. And then you can say when you want the monitor to start. So you don't have to worry about having false alarms overnight. You can set it to start at 8 a.m., set your time zone, and then have it repeat for however long your business day is. So if I wanted to go 8 to 5, I could do start at 8 a.m. and monitor for 9 hours. And if I have a condition during that time, Monday through Friday, of 10 calls or less per hour, I'm going to get a notification of that condition. And that can give us early warning and remediate something before it becomes a problem where there could be lost data and inability to get information on reports in a timely manner. All right, so I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this, about the server platform check. I'm going to jump into that. That's also under the settings gear, under the system. There we go. All right, so this is a quick check that we often, if we're starting a service request call, we want to kind of get the lay of the land. We'll have customers go into the server platform. This gives us a quick snapshot of what operating system we're working with, and some information about versioning and file locations and processors. But the real thing that we check first is often the committed versus the max heap memory. So if you go in here and you see that you have 20 gig allocated and the committed is 20 gig as your peak, then you know that the system is hitting the ceiling for the resources available to the Variphy service. Now, the resources available to, say, your MySQL, your Microsoft SQL Server is a different setting. But this says how much resources available for the operation of our service. And if this is maxed out, then we should probably get a support ticket open to take a look at what might be causing it, whether there's something going on that we can turn off or modify, or whether it's time to consider getting more space. Our current OVA comes with this set to 4 GB, and often, especially on a larger system, that can get used up pretty quick. You can also check, say over the course of a few days here, the root partition, the amount of usable space. If you go in here, start of the week, end of the week, or whatever, you can get a little bit of a benchmark on what how quickly your usable space is being used up. Recommend doing this because um, the raw CDR files, say like if we have a Cisco CDR files. I think I brought it up here. There we go. So this file here of processed Cisco data is about 5,000 records. It is about 2.6 meg. If you could extrapolate that over however many thousands of records you have and days of data that are being stored, you can see that that can fill a hard drive pretty quick. In fact, just the headers that are sent along with each file that's transmitted are about 3K, looking at the CUCM and the Cube CDR. All right, I'm going to go on to the reports repository, where we often, if people are talking about reports having not been received, this is one of the first places that will have you go is did the report generate successfully? So you get here by going into the call analytics reporting under reports, and then within reports, it defaults to the manage of your saved reports. The repository should be right next to that. And this will show us the status of reports that have been generated. Here's just a few of the ones that I've done over the last few days. And you can see there's a request time and a completed time. If you come in here and you see that that either says failure or delivery failure, or if it says generating, but the time that it started is sometime like yesterday or in the past, that is usually an indication that there's something going on with the report generation process that could be related to email, could be related to disk space, could be related to a number of things. And so if you go in here and you're not seeing completed, unless you can ferret out what the cause is on your own, we recommend getting a service request open for us. And as I mentioned back when I was talking about the report repository settings, in the application settings, you have the ability to lock files. So if the report repositories on each platform are self-regulating as far as the amount of time or the amount of space that their reports can utilize. If you lock a file here, this now will be exempt from that. And so if you need to keep, say, a monthly file, if you quarterly reports, whatever it might be that you need to save for posterity, that then becomes a fixed amount of space that's taken away from the repository amount that's available. So I definitely recommend doing this for reports that you need to be able to save over time, so that you don't lose them by accident. You have to resort to trying to recover them from email or a download folder or whatever. You can still have them in the repository, but just be aware that that once they're there, they then take up static space in that repository setting that you won't be able to use for new reports. So that pretty much wraps it up. Trey, we still have a few minutes if any questions have come in.
Yeah, we've got one. Somebody here says that they have monthly data in monthly DBs, and they're asking, are there notifications available before a purge of monthly data?
So if you have the DB archiving, those archive databases are exempt from the purging. So when you have the DB archive set up, let's say you have it set up monthly, that will accumulate for a month and then cut off and become an archive, while the primary database, your working database, is not subject to any sort of you won't have any data gaps. It's held separately. So during the archival period, The primary will have data, and so will that archive. It's just that the primary will stop after X amount of days, and the archive will continue on, even if that's a quarter, and it would have 3 months before that archive is cut. And so what that allows is that the primary database that you use for your main reporting, your day to day. Let's say you do a lot of ad hoc reporting, or you have daily, weekly, or monthly reports. If you set that primary database to just be, say, a week and a month or 35 days, then that remains a lean database, while the archives continue to store everything, so that you don't have any imposed gapping or anything on that. And there's webinars and KB articles on that as well. But we're also happy to work with people on a sport ticket if they maybe don't have that feature and they want to see what it looks like for them, or if there's any questions on the functionality of it.
Great. Yeah, and we've got one more question here. Is there a way to export the configuration uh, that can be imported into a new server in case of server replacement?
So there's a couple databases that are in the system, and I'd have to say that we would want to um, have a service request open to see how that scenario might work for a customer. But uh, generally, you can keep backups of the application uh, within your organization, and but there isn't like a one step extract the configuration and bring it back in. We are looking at moving databases or extracting, um, say, the CR record information, to be moved to another server. There isn't like a copy paste or export import.
All right. Cool. That wraps up the questions we have. Thanks, John.
All right, thank you.
All right. And thanks again to everybody who did attend the webinar. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule here to join us. Our next session is going to be on September the 4th. And John here, as well as our colleague Brian, will cover what happens when a Verify user leaves a company and how to migrate user reports and dashboards. All right. So thanks again. My name is Trey Gonzalez. Again, this is John Deline here today with me. If you haven't
Thanks, everyone.
already, feel free to add us on LinkedIn. Yep, we'd love to connect with you. So with that, I'll conclude the webinar. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your week.